Hey, Zach, you are live with Taylor and Promise on Chewed Gum. How are you tonight?
Good, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Hi.
So what did you want to talk to us about?
Okay, so I saw that the show was going to be live a few days ago, and I just read, is purity worth our time? And I didn't realize that when I called in, the screener said it was about purity culture. So is that what the question was aimed towards, or was it just purity in general, whether it's morally, physically,
We
the
can
way
talk
you
about
eat, or...
we can talk about whatever you want, but I would need you to define purity if we're going to talk about it.
And, well, my definition, I hope that it would align with the Oxford Dictionary definition, but I don't know. When I just think of something pure, I think that it's without any deformities, no other outside things in it that actually, I'm just going to look up the definition, and I just want to see if that's the one that I think about.
Can share. So it's freedom from adulteration or contamination, or freedom from immorality, especially of a sexual nature, but maybe you're not wanting to go there with it.
Oh, that is, okay. Yeah, I would agree with that. Freedom from adulteration or contamination. Quality by addition of another substance. So yeah, I would go with that definition.
Cool. So in what context are we talking about this?
I'm cool. Well, once the screener said it was about like purity culture, then I knew a little bit about it before, but then I just did some like quick research just to like refresh my memory. And I guess I would always encourage men and women being pure in that sense.
What would that mean?
But
because let's be really clear, purity, even as we just defined it, is really subjective, especially in regards to sexuality. Who's deciding what is moral or not, or what's considered adulterated or what's considered contaminated? So how would you encourage someone to do something subjective? Who's getting to define that?
Well, if it is subjective, then I would have my definition of what purity would look like, and then you would have your definition of what purity looked like. So if I were to explain to someone why purity in dealing with sexual relations, marriage, etc., I would encourage no premarital sex to start. And then I feel like I have a few good reasons on why I could back that potentially. But
sure, let's hear it.
I may be wrong.
Let's hear it.
Sure. Unplanned pregnancies, and I would say sexually transmitted diseases.
You can get those while you're married. Like, you can have an unplanned pregnancy when you're married, and you can get STDs when you're married. You can also prevent them when you're not married.
When you're not married, you can prevent them.
Right.
That is true.
What does signing a piece of paper or even holding a religious ceremony do for, unwanted pregnancy or STDs? Nothing.
That's true. With the unwanted STDs, you would hope that your partner would, one, be tested beforehand, and then you would know. But then after you get married and commit to one another for however long you stay together for, that they would be faithful, ideally, unless you're in like a open marriage, which is,
yeah, you would hope.
I would say, uncommon.
Yeah. But I was in a very conservative Christian marriage where we both supposedly waited for marriage, and then I ended up having to get tested because I found out that my pure husband was having affairs. And so marriage did nothing to prevent that. But then I've also had safe sex outside of marriage where we were tested and we could confirm that for each other and all. So again, I'm not saying, I think the issue here would be education and consent and informed consent. I'm still not seeing where being married has anything to do with that.
Okay, I understand your point. Now, I don't know any stats off the top of my head, but maybe you do. Do married people, or what's the STD transmission rate amongst a couple that's married compared to unmarried couples that are having sex, where
I have no idea, but that still doesn't, like, as I just showed you, that still doesn't prevent, like, the issue there is, you know, informed consent and education, like sex education. So maybe you're more likely to have some of that when you're married by chance or by circumstance, but like that doesn't mean that by getting married you're, as I told you with my example, that doesn't prevent any of that. It's the education, it's the informed consent and all of that that does.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm asking you is why would it be better to tell somebody to wait until you get married instead of, hey, make sure that you're practicing safe sex and that you have education surrounding STDs and their transmission? Like, why wouldn't that be what you push? Like, if I had a kid, instead of teaching my teens, like, hey, don't touch anybody until you sign a piece of paper or have a religious ceremony, I would be like, hey, here's some sex ed. Let's talk about STDs. Let's talk about testing. Let's talk about informed consent. Like, do you see how one of those is more likely to prevent the thing you're concerned about than the other?
I can see, yeah, how if it would probably be better to teach adult or a teenager or young adult about sex education than to not teach them and just say get married and you would be safe. Yes. So I would agree with that point, if that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Do you consider people who haven't slept with anybody pure? Like, do you think there are pure and like impure people when it comes to that?
Well, sexually pure, if they're a virgin, then I would assume, yeah, but morally and physically, that doesn't correlate with one another. So, yeah.
Okay, so why are they pure? Like, is the reason you believe this like because you think God cares about it, or I'm kind of confused of why you believe that?
Well, okay, this might sound kind of messed up, but if I know this is going to cause like controversy, whatever, but if I were to meet a girl and she told me her body count and it was like at a certain number, I may view not her differently, but it may cause unease in me, I guess, then to pursue her. But then also, if someone were to ask me mine, I could tell them if it was a woman, and they could be unhappy with it too. So I guess I have a certain preference and standard of what I would look for in a woman. And if
Zach,
she said certain things about her sexual history, then I don't know. I said it might kind of sound weird, but
I'm going to pause real quick, and then I want Taylor to get to respond. But I just want to, like, for everybody else, because I know, Zach, we've had multiple conversations, unless I'm thinking of the wrong Zach. You have called in, and we've had what I think were really great conversations, and I think that you have been cool about showing willingness to change your mind about things actively. And I do want to give everybody the context for that in us having this conversation, because while you may say something that we very much disagree with, that's why we have this show. We like to have these conversations. So I just want everybody else to know so they don't give you a super hard time, because there is context to this. And I appreciate how you've showed up in past calls. So putting that out there. And also just going to say before Taylor responds, there's a caller that we had a couple of weeks ago. I'm so excited I get to meet him in person at American Atheist Convention. But he had called in saying that he has, quote, a preference for being with somebody that's a virgin. And we had a whole long, amazing talk about that. And he's now changed his mind. So that context is not necessarily for you, Zach, although you might want to go back and listen to it. It's just, I just want to remind the audience that these are the kind of conversations we're having here. And it's, as long as everybody is engaged honestly, civilly, I love having them. So anyways, all that.
I'm
Taylor,
surprised you remember me. It's been a while.
No, I do remember you, Zach. I think those were some cool, they were some cool calls. And I remember them because I specifically remember you being quick to say, yeah, you know what? That makes more sense. Thanks. And that's a cool quality in somebody. Sorry, Taylor.
No, that's okay. I was just going to ask if those standards that you said you have when it comes to like how many people, you know, your partner might have slept with, where did they come from, I guess, is what I'm asking. Is this a belief that it's wrong, or like what is the viewpoint there? Like what is your main concern?
My main concern, I honestly, I think it would be like I said, this might sound kind of immature maybe, but just like social criticism. If I'm dating a girl that maybe has been with a fair amount of people, that I'm getting the, I don't want to say it, but like, I don't know, just a girl that a certain group of people would view as low class because of how many people she's been with, I guess. That's my concern. And then also, when I think of a person who's been with a lot of people, that there's a reason for it potentially, and that I might just be another number to her. So I guess that's how I would look at it.
In that situation, though, don't you think that's more about you being concerned at how another person would view you, not so much about like physically what they've done with their body before? Because somebody that's never had sex before could also treat you and view you that same way. And that's a fair thing. Like, that's a fair thing to want to say, like, hey, for me, in order to be physically intimate with somebody, I want to feel like I hold a certain amount of value to them as a fellow human being, whether that's like what kind of relationship we have or how they're going to treat me or whatever it is. It's great. Like, that's totally fine. But I think where the problem is in thinking that what somebody's physically done or experienced with their body before is going to guarantee you any sort of treatment, whether that's for better or worse.
Yeah. And then also the people I surround myself with, probably if they knew about the person's situation, they probably wouldn't agree that I would continue to keep going with them if they knew exactly what that person was about. But
yeah, but again, you'd be dating her, not them, right?
Pardon me?
I said you'd be dating her, though, not them, right?
Yeah, correct. But the reason why I said I would feel, or I would be worried about what other people think, is because the people I'm surrounded by, they hold those values. But if I were in a different, if I grew up around a different group of people, different friends, different whatever, and they didn't hold those views, then they would think it's okay. So, or they wouldn't have a problem with it. So
yeah, that sounds like more of a problem with the people around you. So if other people around you are supporting bad or lazy ideas, which is like this idea that what somebody's experienced before with their physical body has any, guarantee of what you're going to experience with them, then that's their own, that's their own issue. And that's something for you to look into. Like, hey, do I want to be around a bunch of people that would judge somebody for something that doesn't even make logical sense? Or do I want to also, I get it. It's not like I don't have those kinds of people in my life, but also their opinion on that holds as much weight as the logic they're using to form that opinion, which is not. So I think that's something to look at there. Like, that's great. This is cool that you're paying attention to this and that you're thinking about this, but not for the reasons I think you think. It's to examine kind of like, wait, what are these people thinking around me? Why am I caring what they think? And now how do I move forward with this?
Yeah. But honestly, I just been like if I ever meet a girl, I just tell her, don't even tell me, because I don't want to hear it. Because if I don't know, then there's nothing to worry about. So.
I mean, I think that's better not to ask, period.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that.
No, I don't ask.
Yeah, and I think that's great, because I don't think that's anybody's business. However, if you're ever in a relationship where somebody trusts you and feels safe enough to share that with you, and they feel that it's something they want to talk to you about, I think you should consider why that would make you uncomfortable. So with the caller that we had last week, Tide, now I actually do really want you to go back and listen to that call, because it was so good. And I think you would actually
if you tell
really
me the date
appreciate
of it, I will do it.
Yeah, sure. It was literally last week. Tide called in. In fact, Alyssa, I don't know if you follow Alyssa or myself on Instagram, but we both posted part of that clip on our Instagram, because it's the first time she and I have both cried, at least at the same time, on chewed gum. So, but Tide expressed it way better than I can, kind of the thought process he went through and where he landed with that, going from somebody who outright said, I would prefer to be with somebody who's a virgin, to realizing like, it was actually a reflection of some stuff he had to work on internally that said more things about him as to why he was bothered about a body count than the other person. And it actually presented itself as a tool for him to work on himself and grow and like himself even more, because he got to step up with where he was at in his thinking. So I think that might be something for you to consider and go back and listen to.
Oh, yeah. I may have internal things that I haven't figured out for the reason why I think those things, because I'm imperfect, but and then to ask a question.
Yeah, of course.
So another thing about sexual purity, I guess, with unmarried people consenting, is that, and I think I found a study a little bit ago, the NIH.gov or whatever, and it talked about how people who have sex outside of like marriage, I may be wrong, with pregnancy that's not within marriage, it can create is it instability, I believe is the word, where the woman who gets pregnant without someone she's married to, because of like the lack of commitment, can cause like altering like life change, where she has to put on hold her life, single parenthood potentially, and there's probably a few more negative consequences.
Are married women at risk of that happening to them as well?
Yes.
And what's so interesting, there's countries like, which I only even know about this because my husband is from there, like Finland, where most of his friends that I know that have children are not even married, but they've been in committed relationships for years and years and years, or they're not even together anymore, and yet they co-parent really, really well, and are living, and I have friends like this in the States too, are living significantly better lives because they didn't stay in a relationship that ended up being something they either grew out of or wasn't healthy for them or whatever reason, and they're still able to parent well. So I think that's, again, a parenting issue, not so much a like, let's not have sex before marriage because what if somebody gets pregnant, and then what if I decide to be a shitty dad and not help parent this child? You know, like those are still other issues, not the issue of purity in a relationship. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes. Now, the one thing is that if you're married and your husband or wife, after having a child, decides to leave, there's legal routes you can take to somewhat, I want to say guarantee, because there's people in poverty who are married that get divorced and don't have anything. So, but if a mother gets pregnant, the husband leaves, because of the marriage and you getting a divorce, there would be obligations on the father's end.
Financially,
if you took it to court. Yeah.
But you can do that even if you're not legally married.
Yeah, and those a lot of times don't work out. Like, let's say the husband or dad can't keep a job. They're not going to get any money from him. Or let's say I've known women who have become homeless because they gave up their careers and were a stay-at-home mom for X amount of years. And then the man leaves and she is left with nothing. And statistically, women do worse after divorce than men for obvious reasons. But it can obviously lead to them not paying anything at all, or worse, you not having anything at all.
All right, fair. So then the goal should be to find someone who's. Oh,
no, go ahead. No, go ahead. You finish that thought. The goal should be to what?
Oh, to find a partner or a spouse who wouldn't be a bum or treat you that way, I guess, is the end goal.
There's all kinds of stuff here. Yes, people generally, I think if you're wanting to have children with somebody, because that's different than having sex with somebody. If you're wanting to have children with somebody, then yes, you want to look for somebody that can parent well with you, that you're going to align with on things and all of those, finding values. But what you were just getting at, I fully agree with, which is this idea that people should have the things they need if other people fit. So like a place to live, food, education, shelter, all of those things. But again, none of that has to do with who you sleep with or not. Those are issues that I fully care about, which is what's helped shape a lot of my political views. But those are not the same issues as should I sleep with people before I get married or not.
Okay. So then if all these things, so then would you guys ever get married then, knowing that, okay, I don't mean to sound like harsh or anything.
We're both married.
Oh, so then, okay, why did you get married, if I may ask? If, I guess the points I brought up for why marriage is better for purity, and you can do anything can happen outside of a marriage to people who are unmarried and vice versa. All the points you guys made, then I guess what's the point of getting married? If marriage, religious ceremony and a piece of paper isn't really meaningful, then why get married?
Oh, I want to make sure you know it is meaningful, or it can be, because that is subjective. And I think that's why Taylor and I are probably going to both have different answers as to why we got married. And I want to let Taylor answer as well. So things can have meaning. I just think it's a social construct, and also can be a legal agreement that has different meaning depending on the couple that you ask. So, for example, I actually would have been fine to never marry my husband and just stay with him forever. However, we did decide to get married, and there's many reasons, and probably even different between him and I. The ones that we both are in sync with, for sure, we're from two different countries, first of all. And so for me to go spend time in Finland with him, he's also a US citizen, but I'm not a citizen of Finland. So for us to do all the traveling and stuff together, there's some logistics that make more sense for us to be married. That's part of it. On the logistics side of things. Another part of it, I was actively wanting to change my last name for lots of reasons. And I loved the idea of, we call ourselves like a team of us getting to have the same last name, which is funny because when I was a Christian conservative, I didn't change my last name when I got married. I wanted to keep my own. But now I found some value in that with this particular person and the background of his family and his family name. Another reason, we wanted to. It sounded like fun to us. We've both been married before. And I think once you kind of you have somebody that you call a husband or a wife, and in this society that unfortunately takes marriages more seriously than, quote, boyfriend and girlfriend, which is silly, but you kind of get used to that part of the social construct. And that was appealing to us. Also, this public declaration of, hey, you know what? I think I found my person, as sure as I can ever be about something. And I want people to know this is who I'm doing life with. And you can consider them part of my life now, for whatever that's worth to the people hearing it. So that's just a few of the reasons why my husband and I chose to get married, which I'm sure they're going to be different than Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, mine were pretty simple. Just feel like we are making really strong commitment to each other. And we also wanted kind of both of our families to know that this is it, that like this is the this is going to be the long haul type thing. And we also just wanted benefits of being married. Like we went back and forth for a long time of like, what?
Tax reasons or tax benefits for being married?
And like insurance and stuff.
And medical reasons. Like that was another thing for us. Like if we want to own property together and we want to be able to make medical decisions for each other, like outsource that to each other if something awful happens, it's significantly easier in the United States if you're legally married to somebody. Kind of bypasses a lot of legal hoops.
All right. I was wondering, so makes sense.
Yeah. Well, Zach, we've got some other
that's all I got, so.
Callers on the line. No, I love this. And I know people sometimes give you a hard time because you're thinking through a lot of things, but I want you to know that I really appreciate it and you're welcome to call back. And I'd love to hear back from you. Taylor will be back here next week. So I know you've done that before where you call back after you've thought about stuff and you've either had more questions or reached a different conclusion. And I'd love to hear from you if you feel up to calling then.
Yeah, I'm going to do some soul searching for the next week, figure out my issues. So
sounds good.
Love that.
Thanks so much, Zach. Have a great night.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, there. That
He sounds
I feel like, yeah, that exactly. And I think that's the difference. Sometimes we have callers that call and they're like, "Are you going to let me talk?" And it's like, oh, probably not. Now that you've started off like that. But when somebody is genuinely questioning things, even if they've come from some what I would consider to be bad ideas, if they're actually engaging honestly in the conversation, let's have that conversation. I think that's really important.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Do you get a hard time for being an atheist and being married?
Yes, yeah, a lot of times, because a lot of people will tell me that basically Christianity like invented marriage, and I'm like, that's just not true. But okay.
Yep.
But yeah, sometimes
I get that.
Like, what's the point? And I'm like, whatever I want it to be.
Exactly, which is one of the coolest things about not subscribing to dogma, is that you get to determine what something means. And I think that makes my marriage feel more meaningful because I know that I'm choosing it based off of my values, not what somebody else has told me. And I've been married before where I was in it for Jesus, and I'm not married to them anymore. So how cool is that, you know?
Yeah.
Hey guys, thanks for watching that last clip on Chewed Gum. You can catch us live Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Central Time. And please tell your Christian friends to give us a call and let us know why they believe in God. You can also support us by commenting, liking, and subscribing, and head over to patreon.com/calltheline.